handsome, slow down for us. Hey, handsome, pull over for me. Oh yeah, stop here, fine boy. Chai, you too fine. Wait. Hey, handsome, stop for me. Come here, darling. You fine? No, stop now. Fine boy, look here. Customer, pick me now. No, pick me. I go do you well. Fine boy, you go enjoy me. Oh. See now, I full well. Try me now. I dey sweet. See his big head. Who even wants him with his tiny prick?
You in red, come in. I have a job for you.
Anything for you, sir. Sir, I can't do that.
Name your price. I will help you upgrade from this runs girl work. Think about it.
Sylvia wasn't always standing on street corners at night wearing tight clothes and painful heels. 3 years ago, she had arrived in Lagos from Benin City, carrying one small bag stuffed with everything she owned, big dreams that still felt possible in daylight, and a secondary school certificate that had taken her mother years of selling vegetables in the rain to pay for. She had pressed that certificate in a plastic cover, careful not to let it crease, believing with the faith of someone who has never been truly disappointed yet that a piece of paper with her name on it could unlock a door somewhere in this city. She had gone from one office building to another, clutching that certificate like a golden ticket, looking for any kind of honest work that would let her send money home and sleep peacefully at night. She applied for receptionist positions where bored men looked her up and down and asked if she had connections inside the company, as if merit were a quaint story someone once told. She tried cleaning jobs where supervisors took her number and told her to come back next month and never called. She stood in long, defeating lines for sales girl positions where they wanted university degrees she didn't have and experience she couldn't get because nobody would hire her without experience first. A circle with no beginning and no end. The city had no space for village girls like her. No connections, no godfather, no uncle in a big company, no aunt married to someone important. Just rejection after rejection after rejection, until her small savings ran completely dry and rent became 3 weeks overdue, and her phone kept ringing with her younger siblings back home needing school fees, and her mother calling one terrible Tuesday evening with her voice barely above a whisper, saying the hospital had refused to treat her blood pressure without upfront payment. Could Sylvia please send something, anything, because her head was pounding so badly she couldn't see straight and she was scared. Sylvia had sat in her tiny room in Mushin for a long time after that call, staring at an empty pot on the floor and an even emptier account balance on her phone screen, crying until her eyes were swollen and her throat hurt, and the crying itself became exhausting. Then she wiped her face roughly with the back of her hand, stood up, put on the tightest dress she owned, and walked to the street corner 2 streets over, where she had seen other girls standing under flickering yellow street lights on nights when she came home late from unsuccessful job applications. When the first car stopped and the first man looked at her with eyes that made her want to disappear from the earth entirely, something inside her shifted. Not broke, she would not give it that word, not yet. Shifted, rearranged, like furniture moved to make space for a necessity. Her family ate that week, her brother went back to school, her mother got the medication that kept her heart steady and her alive, and Sylvia learned to bury the shame the way you learn any skill. Badly at first, then better, then with a proficiency that frightened her sometimes when she examined it too closely. Now, 3 years later, she was one of the most known and well-regarded girls on that corner. Sharp-tongued, beautiful in a way that had only deepened with difficulty. Fearless on the outside, even on the night she went home and lay in the dark, feeling like something scraped hollow. Nobody disrespected her twice. Nobody tried to cheat her and got away with it. She knew which hotels were safe and which ones had security guards who looked away at the wrong moments. She knew which clients were worth the trouble and which ones would renegotiate the price after everything was done, voice suddenly casual and entitled, as if the agreement had been a suggestion rather than a contract. She knew this world completely, its edges and its dangers and its small negotiable dignities. Her family back home in Benin City believed she worked as a secretary in a big, respectable company in Victoria Island. They were proud of her. Her mother told people in the market about her daughter in Lagos with the good office job, and Sylvia received these second-hand compliments like small wounds. The new zinc roof that finally stopped rain from pouring into their living room, her youngest brother's school uniform, her sister's WAEC registration fee. All of it paid for by strange men whose faces Sylvia tried very deliberately to unremember every morning when she woke up. She walked over to the Range Rover with the confidence she had built like a wall, one careful brick at a time, mortared with necessity. Her hips found the rhythm that men reached for their wallets. But when she slid into the passenger seat and the door closed with the solid, expensive thud of serious engineering, the man behind the wheel didn't look at her body. He didn't make small talk or reach over to touch her knee. He simply put the car in gear and drove away. The silence was not the awkward silence of a man who didn't know how to talk to women. It was something more deliberate, more contained. He drove away from the junction, away from the lights and the noise and the other girls still laughing behind them, toward the quieter dark stretch near the waterfront, where the city seemed to breathe more slowly, and the water sat black and still under a sky thick with clouds. He parked facing the water and turned to look at her for the first time. His face was middle-aged and unreadable. His eyes were the coldest she had seen in a long time, and she had seen all kinds. He told her, calmly and without ceremony, that he had a different kind of job for her. Not what she was used to doing. Something that would pay more than she had ever seen at one time and change her life, if she was smart enough and brave enough to take it. He explained slowly. There was a man in his company named Damian, recently promoted to a senior management position that should, by any reasonable measure, have been his. 12 years of dedication, 12 years of bringing in clients and building systems and staying late and doing more than was asked. And then, in the way of these things, office politics had smiled on someone who knew the right people. He wanted Sylvia to fix this. He pulled out a small sealed envelope from inside his jacket and set it on the dashboard between them. Damian drove past a specific street corner every Tuesday and Thursday evening on his way home. She should be there, be beautiful, flag him down, get into his car, charm him, boat to a hotel, and when he was distracted, when his back was turned or he was in the bathroom or looking at his phone, she should slip the contents of the envelope into his food or his drink. The substance, he assured her, would not kill Damian. It would simply make him sick, very sick, sick enough for hospitalization, sick enough to miss the critical presentations and meetings and boardroom moments that a new senior role demanded, sick enough that the board might begin to wonder, quietly and then loudly, whether they had perhaps been a little hasty in their decision. And by the time Damian recovered, confused and weakened and trying to reconstruct what had happened to him, this man would have spent those weeks making his case, carefully, to the right people. The substance worked slowly, he explained. 6 to 8 hours before symptoms appeared, she would be long gone. A random girl, no trail, no connection, no risk. Sylvia's hand shot toward the door handle. She told him clearly that she was not going to hurt anyone, that she had done things she was not proud of, that survival had cost her things she would never get back, but she had never deliberately harmed another human being, and she was not about to start. The man didn't grab her arm, didn't raise his voice. He simply waited until she finished speaking and then asked her, with the patience of someone entirely comfortable with silence, whether she was truly happy with her life, whether standing on that corner every night, in pain, in danger, seen as nothing but a temporary convenience by men who would not remember her name by morning, was genuinely what she wanted, whether she lay awake imagining something different. Then he described the something different, the money, the connections, men who would actually take care of her, who would see her as a person of value and not merely a transaction, an entirely different kind of life, a door that would otherwise stay permanently locked, opened by one night of work. He kept talking in that same even, patient voice, and Sylvia sat staring at the black water and thought about her brother, about her mother's hands, about the zinc roof, about all the things she had already surrendered for the people she loved, and how this was only one more thing, and wasn't she already past the point where she got to claim a moral high ground? When she finally agreed, her voice was so quiet she could barely hear it herself. The man smiled for the first time. He handed her the envelope and gave her precise instructions. Then he drove her back to her corner and let her out without looking at her again, like she was an errand he had completed. Following his instructions to the letter, Sylvia stood on a street corner she had never walked before, wearing her tightest red dress and her highest heels, the small sealed envelope sitting in her purse like something radioactive. Every car that wasn't a black Lexus felt like a brief reprieve. Every car that might be a black Lexus made her want to step back into the shadows and disappear. When the Lexus finally appeared, moving through the evening traffic with unhurried ease, everything inside her screamed to run, to throw the envelope in the gutter and go back to her normal life, which was at least a life she understood. But she thought about the money, the way out, her family's faces solid and real as anything she had ever known. She stepped into the road and raised her hand. The car slowed, stopped. The window came down, and the man who looked at her was not what she had expected. He was quietly handsome, not the kind of handsome that announced itself, but the kind that settled in gradually, like good news you weren't expecting. Dark, smooth skin, a face that was thinking something, and eyes that found her face first, her face specifically, and stayed there, which was not the most common thing in Sylvia's experience. He asked her politely if she needed a ride. She said yes and got in. The car was clean in a way that felt personal rather than performative, and smelled faintly of cologne that was neither cheap nor aggressive. He told her his name was Damian. She gave him her real name, which surprised her even as she did it. She had a working name she usually deployed automatically. Something about his unhurried, unhungry energy made the lie feel like more effort than the truth. He asked her what she did for work. She gave him the sales story, braced for the knowing look. He nodded and said sales was genuinely tough, that the daily rejection required a specific kind of resilience, and that he respected people who could sustain it. He said it simply, without drama, and she understood that he meant it. They arrived at a hotel. Sylvia's hands were shaking as they walked through the lobby. The envelope in her purse felt heavier with every step. Inside the room, Damian did not do what she expected. He walked to where she stood frozen near the door, knelt before her, and began to undo the straps of her heels with the focused gentleness of someone performing a small kindness they had decided on in advance. He told her she should take off her dress and that he was going to get her something to eat. Sylvia stared down at the top of his head and could not move or speak. When he stood, he picked up the phone and ordered food. He asked her specifically what she liked, what she actually liked, and waited for her to answer. The food that arrived was substantial and good. Jollof rice fragrant with tomato and bay leaf, fried chicken with crisp golden skin, ripe plantains soft in the middle, cold drinks sweating in the air conditioning. He set it out on the small table and pulled a chair out for her. He sat across from her and ate and talked, and Sylvia sat across from him and picked at her food, and slowly, with a bewilderment she didn't quite know what to do with, began to understand that this man was simply talking to her, asking her where she was from, what she missed about home, what she had wanted to do when she was still young enough to want things freely. Listening to her answers with the focused attention of someone for whom the conversation was the only thing happening in the world. He told her about his own life, the frustrations of trying to do good work in a system that rewarded the wrong things, the loneliness of maintaining integrity when cutting corners was so much easier and so much better compensated. The envelope sat in her purse across the room. She touched it mentally, the way you touch a bruise, and each time found that she could not do it. Not to this man, not to someone who had knelt down for her shoes and ordered fried plantain because she said she liked it, and was now telling her about a garden his mother kept in their family compound, laughing at the memory of falling into it as a child. She went home that night with the substance still sealed, still untouched. When Damian dropped her off, he handed her an envelope of cash, more than the evening would normally have earned her, and said genuinely that he had enjoyed talking with her. Sylvia took the money with hands she couldn't steady and stood on the pavement, and something in her that had been very tightly controlled for a very long time suddenly came completely loose. She told him he could stay longer if he wanted, moved toward him in the way she had learned was universally effective, made her intentions unmistakably clear, offered herself with the frank directness of someone who had learned to treat her body as a currency and saw no reason to pretend otherwise. Damian gently removed her hand from his arm and looked at her with an expression that was patient and kind, and without a single trace of the condescension she had braced for. He told her she was worth far more than this, than quick transactions with men who saw her only as a convenience. She laughed and told him she did this every day, that there was no need to perform gentlemanliness for her benefit. She was not a woman who needed to be protected from the truth of what she was. He smiled and said they would be intimate, eventually, more than enough until she got tired, but only once he was certain she wanted him for reasons that had nothing to do with money, only when he was sure it was real, not before. Then he drove away, and Sylvia stood on the pavement outside her building with her mouth open, genuinely unable to account for what kind of man turned that down. The following morning, guilt eating her from the inside out, she called the man who hired her and explained smoothly that an unexpected emergency had pulled Damian away at exactly the wrong moment. The man was cold and displeased and told her not to fail again. Over the 2 weeks that followed, something happened that Sylvia had not anticipated and could not fully explain. Damian kept coming back, every Tuesday, every Thursday, without fail. Sometimes quiet restaurants where they ate slowly and the waiter learned their order. Sometimes parks where they walked and talked until her heels became unbearable and he hailed her a bike without comment. Sometimes just the car, moving through the city at night while Lagos pulsed around them, and they talked about things that had nothing to do with either of their carefully managed public selves. And every single time, the same scene played out at her door with a consistency that began to feel like the punchline of a joke she was telling on herself. She wore the red dress. She wore the expensive perfume. She pressed herself against him in the elevator. She whispered things in his ear that reliably worked on every other man she had ever encountered without exception. She deployed everything she had. She practically threw herself at the man with both hands. And every time, with that same infuriating gentleness, he removed her hands from wherever she had placed them, said not yet, and left. He began to ask her to stop seeing other clients. Not with possession or control, he never made it feel like a leash, but with something that sounded disturbingly like genuine concern. He would take care of her expenses. He would come regularly. She didn't need to keep doing this. He kept telling her she was worth more. He said it so consistently and with such complete absence of ulterior motive that Sylvia, who had developed sophisticated radar for what men actually wanted, could not locate the angle, the manipulation, the hidden cost, and not finding it frightened her more than finding it would have. Her carefully constructed walls came down, not in a dramatic collapse, but in the way walls come down when they are no longer being maintained, slowly, piece by piece, until one morning she woke up and realized that she had been looking forward to Thursday since Monday, and that she had turned down 3 clients the previous week without fully registering that she was doing it, and the thought of being with anyone else made her feel physically ill. She was falling for him, completely. Irreversibly. And she was still carrying his would-be poisoner's envelope in her purse, like a secret that was getting heavier every single day. When the man finally called her, his voice stripped of all pretense, she agreed to meet him. He exploded in his car, hissing and red-faced, demanding to know why she hadn't completed a task a child could do. She listened carefully, asked him to walk her through the plan one more time to make sure she had every detail correct. He did, loudly and in full. The substance, the hotel, the hours it would take to act, the fact that she would be long gone before anything happened, the life he would give her when it was done. Sylvia thanked him sincerely, got out of the car and walked away. Her phone, which she had unlocked and set to record before she had even opened his car door, had captured every word in clear, usable audio. That night, she asked Damian to take her somewhere quiet. He chose a small restaurant on a street that didn't ask too much of you. A corner table, low light, the kind of place where conversations could be private. Sylvia could not eat. She told him everything. The man who had flagged her down, the envelope, the plan, the reason she had really stood on that particular corner, that particular Thursday evening, and waved at his black Lexus. She told him that she had known from the first night, from the moment he had knelt down to untie her shoes, that she could not go through with it. She told him that everything between them had been real, that this was the truest thing she had ever said to anyone. The silence when she finished was dense enough to press against her chest. Damian stood. His voice was controlled and quiet and cut more precisely than shouting would have. He asked whether if he had not been kind to her that first night, if he had been just another client, just another man who looked at her the way she was used to being looked at, she would have gone through with it. Whether a stranger who had done nothing to her would now be hospitalized, his career destroyed, while she walked away with her payment. Sylvia had no answer that was worth giving. She cried. She apologized until the words stopped making sense. She begged him to understand something she wasn't sure she understood herself. Damian stood, looking at her for a long time. Then, "Give me the recording." She handed him her phone with hands that would not stop shaking. He took it. He told her he needed time, and he walked out of the restaurant. Within hours of that night, the man who had hired Sylvia was in police custody. The recording was clear. His company dismissed him before the week was out. He was taken away still shouting threats that collapsed uselessly in the night air. The weeks that followed were the longest of Sylvia's life. She returned to her corner and stood there in her heels and her practiced smile, but something essential had shifted. She was going through the motions of a life she no longer believed in, waiting for something she wasn't certain was coming and was not at all sure she deserved. Then, on a Thursday evening like all the others, a familiar black Lexus rolled slowly up in front of her. The window came down. Damian looked out at her and smiled. He told her to get in. She climbed into the passenger seat and could not speak. They drove in silence through the lit, chaotic, indifferent beauty of Lagos, and after some time, Damian told her that he had spent the past weeks thinking about who she was. Not who she had been or what she had almost done, but who she was underneath the choices that survival had forced on her. He said that when it had truly mattered, when the choice had been hardest and most justifiable to get wrong, she had chosen right. That was all he needed to know. The tears Sylvia had been carrying for weeks finally found their way out. He kept every promise he had ever made. Her family was relocated from Benin to Lagos, settled into a proper apartment with consistent water and electricity that didn't switch off every night like a cruel joke. Her younger siblings were enrolled in good schools with everything they needed. He opened a fully stocked supermarket in her name and spent months teaching her to run it. Inventory, suppliers, accounts, the small dignified machinery of a business that belonged to her. And when enough time had passed, when trust had been rebuilt the way trust is always rebuilt, carefully and without shortcuts, he married her in a small ceremony that felt more real than anything she had ever attended. On their wedding night, he told her gently that he thought they were finally ready. She immediately knew what he meant, and something fluttered loose in her chest. She disappeared into the bathroom for what felt like a long time, bathing slowly, her hands trembling slightly, aware of herself in a way she had almost forgotten how to be. When she came back out, he was sitting on the edge of their bed looking at her with dark, patient eyes, and he said softly, "Come here." And she walked to him feeling nervous in a way she hadn't felt in years, the nervous of something that actually mattered rather than something that merely had to be gotten through. He kissed her with a thoroughness and a tenderness that had no destination other than her. His hands moved slowly, like he had all the time that had ever existed. This was not the brisk transaction she had known for 3 years, performed in hotel rooms that forgot you by morning. This was something with her name in it, something that saw her completely and chose her completely and took her time with her because she was worth taking time with. When it was over, she lay in the dark beside him, tears sliding silently into her hair, and she thought about the night a stranger's car had pulled up in front of her, and she had climbed in thinking it was just another night in a life that had run out of other options. She had not known, standing there under that broken street light, that she was about to make the most important choice of her life, not to destroy a man who had done nothing to her. It had not felt like a choice that would change anything. It had felt like a failure, a job undone, a payment missed. But kindness, she had learned, found you in the strangest places, even on dark corners when you stopped expecting it. And choosing to do right, even when doing wrong was so much easier and so much better compensated, was never truly the loss it appeared to be. One good choice. That was all it had taken. Choose wisely. If you enjoyed this story, please don't forget to subscribe to Omar's African Tales, like this video, and share it with your friends and family. Comment down below. Have you ever met someone who changed your life when you least expected it? Until next time, goodbye.